Hey now. So today I thought I would do a short video on a technique that I do with some of my holster work, particularly the seam, and it's this. It's what I call a molded seam or a grooved seam. Usually, what I do with these, as probably most people, is you just flatten this part out and get it as smooth as possible. But for a little bit of extra work, not too much, you can add a little bit of extra visual interest, a little bit of extra detail to your sheaths or your holsters. This is, if I remember correctly, a 9-ounce shell with a 4-ounce liner, and that measures out to be a little less than half of an inch, which is probably the thinnest I would attempt this on, because you really need this to be fairly stiff once it's done to hold its shape. But it's really easy to do. I showed this, I think I showed this on a previous video. I think it was my insetted holster, which I'll post a link up to here somewhere. But that was just a couple of minutes in a almost 40-minute long video. I thought this warranted its own video. It's really easy to do, and I'm going to show you how I do that right now. So when I first cut out the pattern and I started laying out my stitching lines, the first thing I did was I gave myself a little bit extra on this outside edge here. And it's a little bit wider. Let's see if I can get that in frame. So I gave myself a little bit extra room on this outside edge here of the main seam, as opposed to this. So I'm a little bit closer to the edge on all the rest of the holster except for right here. So that gives me some extra room to do this technique. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a, what's that, a number 3 edge beveler. So this is a pretty aggressive cut that I'm going to make here. I'm going to trim off that inside edge. Doesn't have to be perfect. See if you can see that. It's just to start us off with a small groove there. On this particular holster, I had a little bit of kind of leaning on it. So now I'm going to take a slicker. I've just used straight water on the seam. And I'm going to choose, let's see, one of my smaller edges here. And now I'm going to try to get it into that groove that I made and just start working it. Let's see what I'm doing here. The idea is to flatten out that middle groove. It's kind of tricky to get it both sides of the leather to how do I say it? To stay even with each other. And I also find that, especially when you're using glued edges, and in this case here I've glued this lining into the onto the main body here, you'll get like these little clumps of leather that's kind of glued, these glued edges, these little glued clumps. And I find that a denim, a piece of denim works really well at catching these. I'm going to take it, I'm going to start rolling over the edges. At this point, I'm ready to use a burnishing compound of some sort. This is Tokonol. This is a product I just recently discovered and started using, and I like it so much that I have started using it almost exclusively over gum trag. I sometimes find that over the course of the work on the seam that my stitching line has been pinched off a little bit. I usually just run a overstitch wheel over them to open them back up. And of course, you can leave the edge natural as is, or you can use some edge paint. In this case, I'm going to just airbrush a line of black down into the groove just to accentuate it a bit.